Good morning, everybody. Where did Lily go? She disappeared for some reason. 10 a.m. snuck up on both of us today. Oh my goodness. I wasn't expecting this. Good morning and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic.
Good morning, Bill.
My name is Bill Lester with Hernando County Extension. I'm here with somebody. I'm here with Lily and her skeleton, it looks like.
Her name is Jane.
Jane, okay. We're getting ready for Halloween. Yeah, I guess it's about time. We're in October, so it's appropriate. If you had a Christmas tree next to you, I'd be wondering a little bit, but so we are here this morning with my regular co-host Lily and Jane, her skeleton.
Yeah.
So
I thought I would try to trick you right at 10 o'clock and switch it over to her just to have some fun.
You did it because I was completely thinking about something else. I was thinking about irrigation audits and then like, oh no, it's 10 a.m. And then I start and now I'm looking at a skeleton. So
we do have conversations before this starts, and believe it or not, we have conversations about things like irrigation audits. And so,
Sure, irrigation audits, emails that we've gotten from people with plant questions, there's always something going on. There's always a lot going on. A lot of classes also.
Let
me go ahead and start.
Yep. I got a phone call from a county employee asking me about what I felt about rocks for mulch. And
I like them.
I know you do. But I just did a mulch class yesterday and directed him towards where he could have his wife watch that. Good morning, buddy. I think Buddy, he liked the mulch class anyway. It was pre-recorded because taking a few weeks off, well, literally I'm taking a few weeks off, but I'm taking a few weeks off from live presentations because Bill and I have had some attempted shenanigans. They didn't succeed in anything, but there were some odd names popping up on the Zoom with.
We outsmarted them.
Yeah, we had them so they could only personally chat to him or I, and then they would ask nonsense questions. It was nothing you could make any sense of. So anyway, just to distract them, going to take about a good 4 weeks off of having live Zoom classes, so they'll be bored and go on to do something else. Well, thank you, Gail. So the mulch class was pre-recorded, and I referred this county employee to it, but I basically, I think he called me to get the answer that he wanted, one of those situations, so he could tell his wife, but he hadn't even thought about the heat aspect of it's, one of those beds in front of the house. And so the heat of rock, sidewalk, house, there's a lot of radiant heat bouncing off there, which could be detrimental to the plants that he had in there. And Florida Friendly Landscaping doesn't recommend like using rock in a large amounts for a bed. Use it for pathways, use it for driveways, use it as decoration. I even said if you like the look, like border it with some rock and then put some mulch down where the plants are. A part of the idea of mulch is for it to break down and compost and add, nutrient holding and water holding capacity to the soil. So long story short, no, we don't recommend rock as mulch. I love rocks. I'm a rock enthusiast.
Rocks can make very attractive little odds and ends in the garden. If you go to a rock yard, instead of getting the small rock that you would use as mulch, you can get larger rocks. You can even get boulders if you want to, have it delivered to your house and if you want to pay the money for it. But you could use the individual rocks. You could build a rock garden. You could make accent rocks. There are very colorful rocks that are available. You don't find them naturally in Florida. You don't really find a whole lot of rocks at all here. Limestone.
Limestone. And people who have contacts some way or another with the rock mines, you'll drive around and you'll see pretty big, like lime rock boulders as yard accents in certain areas that are kind of bordering rock mines or whatever. So they had a truck or a crane or someone to bring those. You see them a lot in like the Bushnell area as you're driving up 476. Some of the older homes seem to have those. But yeah, I'm a big rock fan, but we don't want to use it as mulch. And I collect rocks when I travel, not from, federally protected lands or any place that you're not supposed to, but on the roadside or something. Up north they have some pretty cool kind of rocks. And I have one of my favorite rocks. I have to tell you this story. I used to live in the city of Brooksville, very, very, very close to the railroad tracks. And they must have replenished, they put like granite rocks down along the railroad tracks. And there was, some wooded lots between us and the railroad tracks. And that was in the days when it was safer to, I'd spend a lot of time in those wooded lots and along the railroad tracks. I would not recommend doing that in Brooksville any longer. Anyway, whatever drops the rocks along dropped this extra piece and they had to, fling it out into the woods because it's huge. It would derail a train. I mean, it's like this big, all granite. So I saw that, just flung into the woods. So I carried it out of the woods and down the street to my house. I think part of my internal organs might still be on the street when I should carry this. And I have moved it also to my new house. I am in love with that particular rock. So those kind of findings, but not as much. That's the easy answer.
Yeah. I never knew that you had a rock collection. That's great.
I do, yes.
Now, on the other hand, I've seen on rare occasion, I saw somebody, not over here in Hernando County, I think it was in the Orlando area, who took their entire backyard. They lived in a subdivision, took the entire backyard, tore out the sod, leveled it out, put landscape timbers down the 3 property lines, and did it all in gravel. Whole thing.
Would not be certified as a Florida-friendly yard if you did.
But boy, that's talk about low maintenance.
I know the weeds are going to pop up through there.
Get yourself a backpack pump sprayer a couple times a year. That's no maintenance, but we do not recommend that.
Exactly. Yes. So it said, are we going to get into point counterpoint here?
Well, that's what I could kind of see both sides to that one, but technically we don't recommend that. That's not Florida friendly. It's not good for the plants and the rest of your landscaping.
The reason, one of the principles, if you can see it, number 4, is mulch in Florida friendly landscaping is many reasons, but one of them is the idea of them breaking down. Cindy's baiting you, Bill. The idea of them breaking down and adding to our sandy soil. It won't add nutrients. It'll improve its nutrient holding capacity. It'll improve its texture and its water holding capacity as well. Okay, you're going to walk into this one, Bill.
Sure. If you have a large area with rocks and you start to have an issue with weeds popping up, you can carefully spray them with a non-selective herbicide to kill the weeds. Be very careful because if it's breezy or windy and what you're spraying blows over onto your prized petunias or gardenias or whatever it might be, it's going to either damage them and make spots on the leaves or potentially kill it depending on how much gets blown over. But in a rock area, you can carefully spray with non-selective herbicide. That includes a number of different things like glyphosate, which works on everything. There's a couple of others that you could use.
Jane used glyphosate recently.
Oh no.
I'm kidding.
But in many instances, you got a choice. You're going to use one of those products, or you're going to go out there, get on your hands and knees on a regular basis, pull the weeds up, which
How do
is
you feel
great
about-
exercise, fresh air.
What do you
Nice
feel about
weather
vinegar?
now. So
Vinegar, baking soda, all that stuff. What do you feel about that?
that stuff doesn't work. Doesn't work in Florida. Vinegar can burn the cuticle, which is the outside skin, basically, of a plant. But it's only going to work if that weed is very, very small and young. Let's say it just sprouted, it's a 1/4 inch high. Vinegar would probably work on it, but the kind of vinegar that you have in your pantry that you put on top of your salad is maybe 6% acidity. You need something much stronger, more like 50% acidity. So you're going to have to order it online. They do sell it online or possibly at a big box store, but I have no idea if they're selling that or not. So that vinegar at that strength and that acidity can damage and burn through the outside of very small young weeds. If your weeds are chest high, vinegar is not going to work. The weeds are going to laugh at you at that point. They might look a little sickly, but it's definitely not going to kill them. But little tiny ones, it may be effective, but they're going to grow right back. So it's kind of a never-ending battle.
What about baking soda?
If vinegar was really effective for weed control, I bet you a big company would have put it in a jar and started selling it by now. Probably.
What about
I
baking
can
soda?
go to Winn-Dixie or Walmart and get a big bottle of vinegar for pretty cheap.
Sure.
But the problem is it doesn't work, and it really doesn't. If it does work, it's not going to work well or for long. And yeah, Cindy says she doesn't want to pull them by hand. I hate pulling them from around my landscape. Whenever I've had a vegetable garden, I find it relaxing to plop on the ground out there and pull weeds, but that's just me. It's definitely not for everybody.
And it's certainly not going to get the weeds like my nemesis, Bermuda grass.
Yeah. There are a few weeds, Bermuda grass, torpedo grass, things like that are special cases that are very difficult to control no matter what you're spraying on them. And Bassam says the hardware store used to carry the strong vinegar. Yeah, you might find it at Ace Hardware. You may find it at Home Depot and Lowe's. Like I said, I haven't looked or noticed it. You can order it online, but it's much more acidic than grocery store vinegar. And at that strength, it becomes dangerous. You don't want to get it on your hands. You don't want to breathe it in. You definitely don't want to splashing up in your eyes.
And as a
You're going to use some
representative,
colorful language then.
as a representative of the University of Florida, you can't recommend something not labeled,
No, we can't recommend any homemade concoctions that you pull out of your pantry or from underneath the kitchen sink. A lot of people will use dish detergent and water, and the problem with that is pretty much all of them are detergent. It's not a soap.
They're not soap anymore.
And a lot of them can actually damage plants because, once again, they burn through or damage the cuticle or the outside skin on the plant. So we only recommend that you use actual controls that are labeled to be used as actual controls and not start grabbing for, whatever out of your kitchen.
Yep.
And Cindy, I totally agree. Sitting out there pulling weeds can be relaxing in cooler weather. Not when it's 102 in the full sun.
Yeah, but there's not as many.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you get your weed situation really under control over the winter, and then start in the spring and keep it under control, you can do it. You can do it. You can actually defeat them and do it. If you do like me and don't get it under control really well over the winter and then neglect it in the spring, come summer, really tough to get it back under control.
Well, my nice front bed that I have full of, butterfly garden, butterfly plants and things. Now that the June sunflower is decreasing. It's still there, but it used to fill up the whole bed. But what happened is, I put new mulch in it or just things, compost or whatever, and the June sunflower doesn't like it there anymore because it's too nice. The June sunflower wants to be where there is almost nutrition-less soil, hence its name.
Yep.
But anyway, so I've got a bunch of salvias and all kind of wonderful pollinator attracting plants in there now. And usually sometime July or August, I'm out there sweating to death, really, really pulling the Bermuda grass mainly. And
Well, I know with your vegetable garden, when your spring garden gets done, which is generally June-ish, here in Central Florida, going to vary depending on exactly where in the state you are. Don't just abandon your vegetable garden for the summer. You will regret it in the fall because your weeds will be like chin high and it'll be really hot and steamy as you're out there pulling them out to try to clear it out for fall.
Should you like solarize?
Sure. During the summers when you want to solarize, if you keep it weed free and just start dumping grass clippings and organic matter and whatever you have access to, tree leaves, finely chipped mulch, and it needs to be very finely chipped for it to break down pretty quickly. Pine needles work really well also. Just thick layer on top of your vegetable garden. It'll break down quite a bit over the summer, and then late summer you can turn it in, and then come fall, this time of year, you're set. Your vegetable garden is pretty much good to go. Couple weeds here and there, turn over the soil, break it, smooth, and you're good to go. It's just I found that when you abandon it for the summer, you go out there now and your weeds are about, this high.
Yeah, and their roots have taken a good hold in there too.
Yes, they have. So you have deep roots and all kinds of, who knows what has popped up in your garden. You'll get perennials and you'll get bushes and all kind of vines coming up. It's like, What is this stuff? Now you're out here with a shovel trying to dig them up. Yeah, it's just, Bassem says weeding once a week is doing its job in our garden. So yeah, if you can do it diligently and just don't let it get out of control, things work out much better. When you let it get out of control, sometimes it's hard to get back under control. And Lily, we have a question here on areca palms. Are you familiar with areca palms? I used to have a bunch when I lived over in Deltona, up against the front wall or it was really the side wall of our house. It's a small clumping palm.
Like a robolini?
Similar. They don't develop the big stumps or trunks that robolinis do. And arecas get huge down in Miami and South Florida. They never get that large up here because they do freeze back some in the winter. Okay. And you're always going to have to go out and trim up a lot of dead fronds in late winter, early spring. So they never get out of control here. I have seen them down in Miami and they get very large down there. But Gail says she has an areca palm question. My neighbor chopped them down. We have massive roots left on our side, winding around our fence. How can we get rid of them? We have to get them away from our fence to even get them grinder up very deep roots.
Palms are really hard to grind because they're fibrous. They're not wood. They're made of fibers. They will gum up any kind of chipper, anything like that. My husband is kind of clearing. We're cleaning out the brush in a lot we bought next to us, and he knows better than, got a chipper. He's so excited. He retired and got a chipper as a present. And but he knows better than to try and put the palmettos through the chipper because it's all stringy, fibrous. Well, lizards.
It's a little celery-like if you think about it.
That's a good way to put it, like celery, and that's going to really mess up a chipper. So, what do you suggest? More axes. Keep up with the axes, I guess.
Yeah, for something like that, you're going to really have to work with your neighbor. I have no idea what your relationship with your neighbor is like, but when it cut them down, if all they did was just cut them down to ground level, they're going to grow back.
Mm-hmm.
With something like that, you could cut it down to ground level and spray it with an herbicide, and that is going to, right after you cut it, and hope that the herbicide is pulled back into the roots and it's going to kill it that way.
He means right after you cut it, within
5 minutes after you cut it.
Yes.
So you're going to cut it and immediately spray with the concentrated formulation of that. If you look on the directions on the herbicide bottle, if you look for cut stump treatment, and if it's on there, it will tell you how much to mix with how much water to make it, how strong to make it. So that would work. Otherwise, with those things, when they have roots underground, they'll keep going and popping up until you dig up every last root. And it can take a long time. So you can play kind of whack-a-mole. You wait, and when you see one pop up, you dig around it and dig out as much root as you can. You see another one pop up. Oh, where am I? Pop up here and then pop up there, and they're popping up in different spots in your yard.
Same holds true for Brazilian pepper, bamboo, anything that
cherry laurel spreads underground, and if all you do is you just cut a cherry laurel tree down at ground level, all you do is make it angry, because now you have 15 shoots coming up. You have 15 trees. So a lot of trees grow like that. The roots stay alive underground.
Isn't there a Greek legend about that? The
cherry laurels?
About what you were just describing about, what the hero cut off the monster's head and he kept growing.
Oh, wasn't that Medusa?
No, she had snakes for hair.
Okay, well, if you cut off one of the snakes, didn't Medusa grow back more? Oh, no, we're going to have to check on our Greek mythology. If you guys can help us out here. Yeah, and Gail was concerned that they would break a chip or two. Roots don't do really well on a chipper because roots always have dirt on them also, and dirt and sand dulls any kind of blade very, very quickly. And Gail, an axe is going to help. You know what helps with digging those kind of things up is either, if your back can handle it, a good old-fashioned pickaxe or a good sharp shovel. But if you have a bench grinder, whatever you use to sharpen tools with, sharpen the shovel. And you can sharpen a shovel blade to get it pretty darn sharp. And if you're sitting there trying to use it as a knife to cut through small roots, it can work really well. But you have to have sharp tools. If you're out there with a dull pickaxe, it's a long day and your back's going to hurt. If you have a really razor sharp pickaxe, I've had to take out very, very old overgrown azaleas and things like that have a big root system. It's shovel and pickaxe time, guys. Or pay somebody younger with a stronger back for shovel and pickaxe time. Or you can use a chain and chain it to a vehicle and pull it out that way.
Mm-hmm. It depends on how close they are to the fence, too, and if you're going to do any damage to the fence.
Yeah, it depends on if it's a wood fence or chain link, and what the exact
situation is. Renting a bulldozer to get down deep, but that depends on the fence situation.
And Debbie has a question here. Good morning, Debbie. How are you? She has a cassia that's not blooming, losing leaves at the bottom 1/3. The top missing new growth leaves due to many caterpillars. Do you know what this could be, Lily?
Not blooming could be not enough sun, but also I have some cassia that pop up by themselves. I suspect them to not be the natives. I suspect them to be the kind of invasive ones. And but they didn't start popping up really until late summer. So as soon as they started coming up, they looked very, very sad because the rains stopped. So I think it's just maybe the end of their season, depending on where you are. But not blooming is usually a sun issue. And I'm not sure about the losing the leaves. And it depends on what kind of caterpillars. I mean, a lot of times we have these butterfly plants to be food for the caterpillars. So sometimes you just have to make those sacrifices. And there's a lot of people who promote butterfly gardening, more natural type gardening, say if if your garden's not being eaten, then it's, not part of the ecosystem. So, it might be time to just let it be fodder for the caterpillars and see. Usually they come back pretty well. There you go.
I know one caterpillar or one butterfly's caterpillar that really likes cassias is different species of sulfur butterflies, the yellow ones that you see flying around.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good chance that the caterpillars that you're having a problem with look similar to this. And different species, as you can see, they all look a little bit different. They're all green, they all look kind of similar, but just a little bit different. But chances are that the caterpillar problem you're having is going to turn into a very pretty sulfur butterfly. So I know that we sell cassias at the Master Garden Nursery, and we sell it and promote it as a host plant for those caterpillars. So if you see those kind of caterpillars on it, think of it as a good thing. If you have a butterfly garden anywhere else in your yard, that's where your butterflies are coming from. Which, by the way, I should have taken pictures or a video yesterday. In my backyard, in the dog area, where I have a lot of the, and it's spread quite a bit this year, the frog fruit.
Oh, cool.
It is a host plant for the peacock butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
And they laid a lot of eggs out there. And there was a lot of caterpillars out there. A whole army of their caterpillars crawled up the side of my house, up to the eaves, and made little green chrysalises, whatever the plural is.
I don't know the plural of chrysalis.
Oh my God, that section of the backyard was filled with butterflies yesterday.
Oh, you should have
I had groups of 5 of them all wrestling around, and they're all over the place. The dogs are like, what the heck is going on? What are these little guys out here? Tons of them. So for anybody with a butterfly garden, you need to grow that. And for a month or two now, the little orange, black and orange checkered butterflies, I've got a ton of those also. My yard is filled with butterflies from a ground cover that I just cut like turf grass.
And you didn't put it
really high. I don't want to damage it too much, but I cut it. I treat it like turf grass, and my yard is filled with butterflies that came off of it.
And you did not put it there.
It came with the house. I have no idea how it got there.
Oh, I'm the first one to live in my house, and I had plenty, and I didn't put it there. It's, what people would consider a weed, but it's a native plant. It's called fog fruit, turkey tangle fog fruit, as well as matchhead weed. Probably have it in your yard right now. Just go out and look. It's in the full sun. Yes, sulfur butterflies everywhere. Then I would say that they're enjoying it. Plus, it's hot and not raining as much right now. We suddenly, like someone turned off the spigot too. That could have be what it's reacting to as well, and losing its leaves, because it went from shh and a moop. Have you noticed that? Other than the other night, I got a huge rain.
So do we.
Yeah. But
as a general rule, we're going to get less rain now. And cassia could be a slightly fussy bloomer. I know it tends to bloom really late, because we had some that were put in the ground in the little ditch area, the little wet area at the nursery that they built a little bridge that goes over it. There's cassias there, and they don't bloom until just really beginning this time of year. They're late bloomers.
Okay.
And Lily, how about chia tree to attract butterflies?
I don't know what a chia tree is.
I'm not sure how
it might be in South Florida. Must be a South Florida thing.
I think it grows better in South Florida.
Okay. You gonna look that up?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to. Okay, here. This is going to be group learning time. We're all going to learn together. So, the chia tree. Chia is a little-known leafy green vegetable in dry regions of the tropics. That's where I've heard about it from. I've never tried it myself, but I know whenever you read or hear information about things that you can grow in the heat of summer here, chia is one of the ones that comes up.
Does not pop up on the Florida Friendly Landscaping Plant Guide.
I think that it's more normally grown as an edible.
Okay.
As opposed to
show some other pictures of
landscape.
that. Now that you're showing that.
I'm reading it. It is cold sensitive, so it's going to do a lot better down in South Florida. It has spines. The younger leaves and a bit of the stems are cut and used a lot like spinach. So it's a green. The green leafy component is eaten.
Show it again. Show the picture, because I have something growing in my front bed that I don't know what it is, and I'm watching it, and it almost looks like it could be that.
Okay, word of warning: raw chia leaves are highly poisonous, similar to cassava. Cassava, also known as yucca, you have to peel it and you have to boil it well for it to be. It's great if you do that. You just don't want to be eating it raw. So Lily, there's a chia leaf.
Now it looks different, and it has like these little red, I'll take a picture and send it to you, but it's almost that holly looking kind of leaf, but it's getting little red kind of tips on it. It's very interesting. When something like that pops up, I'll watch it for a while to see, are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? And so I'll have to get a picture of it.
Yeah, and I guarantee you there is a caterpillar that feeds on chia, because pretty much every plant out there has at least one caterpillar that will feed on it.
But will it be a pretty butterfly, or will it be a pest caterpillar?
That is the question. Yeah, tree spinach, so it grows like a shrub or a tree, but it's eaten like spinach, but it's not exactly the same as spinach. Sometimes these things, you may want to try it before you grow an acre of it to make sure that you like it. And yeah, chia can be eaten like spinach.
But not raw.
Not raw. And there are two kinds. And I'm sure that there's caterpillars that feed on them. What the caterpillars turn into, I couldn't say without seeing the specific caterpillar. Caterpillars are a little hard to ID, but you know what you can do? You can keep them in a jar and feed them some leaves, and then wait until they emerge as a butterfly or moth and see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's one that you want to keep. Like the white peacock butterflies are very, very pretty.
That fog fruit also attracts a buckeye and a Phaon crescent butterfly as well. And those two are like quarter size. And you will see those all over that fog fruit. Why don't you show a picture of the fog fruit? Because I bet you a lot of people have it in their yard and don't even realize what good of a plant that it is.
Let me find a good picture of one here. Well, let me look at images.
It's a ground cover, probably in your lawn, has little flowers that are kind of purple. They look like match heads, and little teeny tiny flowers on top, just a few, like maybe 6 like little petals on top of each one. And I've sat in the middle of my lawn and just watched the butterflies dance all over the place. You can't do that in a total weed-free, just turf lawn.
Yeah, when it comes to caterpillars and butterflies, St. Augustine turf does not support any at all. So here's a picture of what one looks like. And you should see them flying around this time of year. They're a very, very late in the summer emerging butterfly. There's certain things that here in Central Florida naturally come out late in the summer. These butterflies, saltbush, if you're familiar with it, it seems to be the last thing to bloom.
They like that?
Most people think of it as a roadside weed. Well, these guys would visit it.
Nice. Okay.
And I can see at the very bottom there, larval hosts, water hyssop, and frog fruit, Phyla nodiflora.
Okay. Yeah, it's. Can you copy that and put it in the chat, the Latin name, so people can find the plant of many names?
Sure, I could do that.
And I know it's all over my yard, and I let it be there. Like I mow it, I let it get in with the butterfly garden, because it is a butterfly plant. I'm pulling all other kind of weeds out there, but it gets to stay. There you go.
And there's a picture of the plant. Can you see that?
I can, because I know what I'm looking at, but
okay. You see a tiny little butterfly sitting on top of the flower. This is the frog fruit, or fog fruit, has a lot of different common names. Turkey tangle fog fruit, cape weed. I never heard cape weed. I've heard matchstick plant, because the flowers look like a little stick match that are white with the white head on it. And it's a low growing native ground cover. And if you're able to cut your lawn at, let's say, 4 inches high, that's tall enough where you can have this growing as a ground cover
easily.
And when you cut it, you're going to take some off, but not an awful lot.
I've seen it actually in uncut areas, like in plant beds where people let it just grow, and it surprised me. It was like 8 inches tall. I hadn't seen it that tall before.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not going to get 6 feet tall. It's just only going to get 8 inches tall. So it is a ground cover, and does support the Phaon crescent, the white peacock, like we just saw, and the common buckeye. And other butterflies will visit the flowers. Butterflies and bees and everything love the flowers.
Well, I've seen bees all over them. Yeah, if you have this in your yard, be grateful, but also act like you're up north and you have clover, meaning don't walk barefoot through your lawn. You could get stung. So.
Okay, guys, if anybody watching has any questions, any specific lawn and garden questions, just go ahead and throw them in the comments, and we will go ahead and we'll do our best to answer them.
You have a master gardener with a question here for you.
It's a hard question. I'll have Lily answer it. So.
Okay.
So Linda asked, do hummingbirds migrate south? My nectar plants are still blooming profusely, but I've not seen my 2 hummers in about a month, and I am perplexed.
I believe they are migrating right now. What we're going to see here in Central Florida and South Florida are the ruby-throated hummingbirds. There's like 2 other kinds that are in Florida, but they hang out up north. Buddy might see them. We probably won't. And I remember seeing something in passing, that they are in the process of migrating through right now. So they're probably, reacting to the daylight hours, things like that, and headed south. So.
Yeah, I would think the ones from Pennsylvania are heading south, and they do pass through here. so they appreciate food.
Right,
The ones
but
that
like I
normally
said, the
live
only
here are
kind,
probably gone by now.
yeah, we're not going to see anything except the ruby-throated.
Yeah,
That's just what likes our particular area.
that's the only one I've seen in
Hmm.
Florida.
Hmm. Now you might see some nice hummingbird moths still. So
They're out there, especially if you have any plants that bloom at night, night blooming jasmine, any one of the flowering cacti. If you go out there and look at the flowers at night, you'll see plenty of moths around them. And how easily does frog fruit transplant?
I've never
Mary?
tried it. I haven't had to, but
If you were to dig up just a little square, and I would dig it up as plugs, dig up a little square with some roots where it's actually growing into the ground and transplant it. It grows like a weed.
I bet you it would do just fine.
Yeah,
Or if you
it grows
bought
and
a
spreads, does
pot
well on
of
itself.
it at a native plant nursery, I'm sure it would just take off just fine. No.
Okay. Cindy asked, does clover grow here like up north? What do the rabbits like to eat?
To see true clover, very rare. I'm not saying not at all. If somebody is throwing around some, grass seed or something, it may show up. But what we call clover here is actually oxalis, and that's going to throw up some like purple, more like plants, not your traditional clover that you're used to up north. Correct, Bill?
Correct. Up north, I remember mostly white clover, but there is red clover also.
Mm-hmm.
They will grow down here, but only in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use both of them as a cover crop in your vegetable garden, but only in the winter. So it's going to die back in the
It's like
summer.
finding a true dandelion. It's rare and far in between.
If you have a shady corner, you may have some that over summers and does okay. But as a general rule, I've never seen it. Well, most people up north consider it a lawn weed.
They do.
Yeah.
And then the battle up north is now all the naturalists are saying leave it alone, because the rabbits do like it up there. What do they eat here? What have we been talking about all day, Dr. Lester? What do they?
Turkey, tango, frog
Yeah,
fruit, probably.
I've seen them eating it. They like Spanish needle.
Yep. They like a variety of weeds because they sit there and they just have a buffet in my yard. And I can't really see specifically what they're eating, but they seem to enjoy my 50.
They're surviving. Yeah, they're thriving just fine. They're finding stuff to eat. And, they're from here. They're usually what kind of, do we have? The cottontail and then the marsh rabbit. Those are the ones that your boss is always getting pictures of and naming them. That's how I happen to know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just call them the bunnies. I've got bunches of cottontails in my yard, and they seem to find plenty to eat. So they're from here. They know.
Yeah, they do enjoy a wide variety of weeds from my front yard. And the neighborhood gopher tortoise, when he cruises through, he always stops in my yard and finds something.
And I'm pretty sure the rabbits and the tortoises pretty much eat a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. And apparently groundhogs like purple clover. So we really don't have purple clover here, but we don't have groundhogs here either. So,
which is a good thing. When I was a child when we left Pennsylvania, and I don't remember near as many groundhogs then as there are now. I go up there, I don't see chipmunks. It's rare and in between, but good Lord, the groundhogs are everywhere. So that's just how things have changed in the past 40 some years. I follow this one photographer who goes back to visit. He's also a fitness expert, so he loves to make use of Pittsburgh's public steps, which there's many of them going up the mountains and stuff. And anyway, he was videoing himself running up these steps, and this thing just flittered by the steps. And so I had to put in the comments, my husband and I are on a debate. I say groundhog, he says cat. Then she answered groundhog. So, this is in the city. So,
Yes. Now we have armadillos down here, but we don't have groundhogs. And Thomas asks, does clover completely die off in the summer, or will it come back in the winter?
It probably won't come back. It'll be annual ryegrass.
Yeah, it probably has to be reseeded to come back. Like I said,
it's not native to this area, and it is a cool, I mean, it seems like it's growing when it's pretty warm up north, but obviously it doesn't do well with our humidity and everything. So you would treat it like you would annual ryegrass if you want it down as a ground cover or like as a cover crop, as you mentioned. You just know you're going to turn it back in to add the legumes and the nitrogen, but it's not going to.
Yeah. And I'm familiar with this use as a ground cover. And as a general rule, it dies completely. So the hot summer should completely take it out. Sometimes ground covers, if you don't manage them correctly, could turn into weeds. They come back over and over when you don't want them to. And now it's a weed. So we
have similar looking clover leaf weeds, plants, whatever, but that is Oxalis. It's not, I don't think it's even in the clover family, is it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not the clover expert here. But yes, Cindy, there are several different types, and several different types will grow here. My guess is probably not all of them, although most any of them, if you really wanted to grow it for some reason, would grow during the cooler time of year in the winter for at least a while. And Bassem says that there's another one to attract bees and pollinators. It's a lobster tail. And Cindy misses her chipmunks. They plant sunflower seeds all over the garden, always a surprise. So we have anoles here. We have those cute little lizards. They're not as cute as chipmunks.
Yeah, I'm going to Tennessee in the woods next week. Maybe I'm going to keep an eye out for some chipmunks. Instead in the western Pennsylvania, I did see one last year. So you can ask my grandson, who was 14 at the time, because he says I made some kind of inhuman noise that scared him. I was driving, and one ran across the street, and this noise came out of me screaming, "It's a chipmunk!" But I won't replicate the noise here because people have their microphones and stuff on. But
I don't want to damage any speakers or anything.
Still a rarity to see it.
And Thomas asking a good question. When would I reseed it? When the weather cools off. I would say not until about November.
Same time you put ryegrass down.
Yeah, it's partly cooler temperatures and partly shorter days. Because even though you may still have warm days November and December, because the days are shorter, overall the conditions are now cool enough. If you put the seed down, it'll germinate and it'll grow. And then what happens is around March or April-ish, as the temperature and humidity starts going up, all those different cool season, the annual ryegrass that people might put on their lawn, and the different cool season cover crops you might put in your vegetable garden, all start to burn up and die back.
I saw some ryegrass at Walmart really cheap. Ryegrass seed, way cheaper than Bahia grass.
Yeah.
But it's only going to be there a few months, and then it's gone.
There are people that try planting a lawn from seed here, like with Kentucky bluegrass and fescues and stuff. It's not going to last year round. And it may look good for a while. You may go, "Oh wow, it popped right up and it's green and it's been looking fine." Not going to last long term.
It's not going to be any more different than when you grew it in a plastic cup in 3rd grade. It's going to pop right up in the cup, and then, it's going to die out. Just going to do the same thing in your yard, because we can't have cool season lawns here. We have warm season lawns.
You could have a cool season lawn for the winter, for a couple months, and then either what's going to happen is either that cool season grass that you planted is going to die back, or the weeds are going to come back up in the spring, get the upper hand, take over, and dominate.
Well, they would die out. They die out by May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need to wrap it up shortly here because I have a meeting coming up in about 10 minutes. But Cindy said she meant the difference in bunnies. And yes, she does love the anoles. She's only seen one green one. I have the green ones, and I have the brown ones, the Cuban anoles. And I have I think it's a 6-line skink.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It looks like an anole, but it's a little bit longer. And it has kind of fluorescent bluish, purplish lines down its back. Very, very attractive.
It's the funky one. Tell them the difference, or what you learned, not the difference, but what you learned of how our native green ones and the Cuban ones have learned to live with each other and work things out.
The green ones can live higher up in trees, and the Cuban anoles hate climbing too high in trees. So what they've done is they kind of divided up where the native green ones you'll find farther up in trees. That's why you're not going to see as many on your sidewalk or on the ground. Most of the ones you see there are going to be the brown Cuban anoles who like life at ground level, but don't really climb much higher than waist high up a tree, I think. And I'm not the lizard expert.
They'll climb a little higher when a poodle is chasing them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Cindy has geckos too. If you go in South Florida, they have a whole bunch of invasive lizards down there that I've never seen. We don't have here. So and I'm not an expert on it.
But if you live in Florida, you've got little tiny anoles, you've got lizards. It's just part of the landscape. You know, you just walk around. I'm not even really consciously aware of them. They don't bother me, which is why it always kind of amazes Bill and I if we get questions of someone wants to get rid of them.
Yeah. And keep in mind that you, if you live in a house with a landscape outside, you have a black snake out there. You may not have seen them before, but you probably have a black snake that lives in the bushes. Just leave them be. They eat the Cuban anoles, and the Cuban anoles eat bugs all day long. Mm-hmm. And they all help to keep things under control out there. People have worse problems when they dive in and kind of really muck things up. And then we get the phone calls about, why do I have a huge outbreak of this or that and something else? Like, oh my gosh, nobody has that problem. What did you do? And then they start telling you what they did, and things get even scarier sometimes. So if you have any other questions, if you need something identified, feel free to email me. Send good, clear pictures. There is no such thing as too many pictures attached to an email, Lily. Okay. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
More pictures are better. And there's Lily's email. If you have any really difficult questions
and happen to get their picture, I'll send it to you to share with everyone.
Okay.
Probably we'll see some groundhogs because part of my trip will end up in Pennsylvania as well.
Okay, now she's going to come back with chipmunk and groundhog pictures, I guess. That's fine. And last little comment here, Cindy says, yes, she has a black racer and a rat snake, which is great. Rat snakes are great also. Black racers also feed on rattlesnakes, so they're good to have.
I saw the other day, Tuesday, I went to a local school. We were talking about composting and rain barrels and all that. But walking through the courtyard to get to where we were going to talk to the kids, and there were kids flittering around. This black snake just in their courtyard, just kind of, and what I thought was really amazing is the kids were just like, they just watched it. And that to me spoke wonders of the future, that they just looked at it like, okay, there goes the black snake. no big deal.
Yeah, without flipping out. And oh my gosh, we need to kill it. We need to catch it and kill it and find out what it is. And yeah.
Yeah. So that is, I had some hope for the future.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. We will be back here again next Thursday at 10 a.m. for another virtual plant clinic.
You will be, yes.
I will be. Lily will be off on a 3-week vacation.
You want me to leave Jane here?
No, I can handle it. I'm gonna find a guest host to come in and help with it. So I just
She'd be a great guest host. She won't keep you on too long. She won't argue with you.
Yeah, she won't answer any questions though, so that's no good.
Sure she can. She can say no.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, and we will see all of you again next week. Until then, take care and enjoy the beautiful fall weather that's just beginning.